Good morning, everybody. Let me give you a warm welcome on behalf of entire team Glecta. Here, let me start with again the same question that why we all are here. Students are here for the learning and for GCSE exam, and entire team Glecta is make that dream come true. Right? We cannot commit to the minimum efforts, but we can commit to the best possible way so that your entire journey will be enjoyable. And if you want to learn something for long run, not only for exam, that has to be enjoyable because that is going to stay with you for entire rest of your life. All right. So let me try to explain you why our journey is exciting, why we are different, and the most important thing, you would have entire thing of entire educational different things at one place. Means your different kind of approaches at one place, different kind of resources, everything at one place in terms of your notes, best teachers, best practice papers, and counseling, everything at one place, previous year exam, their analysis, and your growth tracking. Let's come with the first step of Glecta. The first step is the notes. Your easy to remember and power packed notes we will provide you. For example, day one. This is a journey of a week. I'm just showing you as a standard. Then next, coming to the second point, which is second step, your main lecture. For example, you have taken the notes on Saturday. On Monday is going to be your main lecture. Then on Wednesday is going to be a revise and doubt session. Just think about it. It's a stepwise process, and it's a reinforcement of the same topic you are learning, right? You are understanding it to the deeper depth, to the teacher, to the understanding, and the best technological tools and the videos, animations, so that you would understand the each bit of it. And after this third level of reinforcement, final thing is your practice. Practice is not the practice. Practice is the three level of practice. One is practice, then the test, and finally the exam. So what we do, or whatever we have learned in that particular week, we are going to take the exam on the 7th day, which is on Friday of that week. Then what we do, we will put that results on the angel's eye. There's a tool where you can see your results in terms of your analysis and different kind of topics which you have done, how much good you have understood it, how much not you have good understood it. Then finally, the monthly test again, this unit and others unit which you covered for the entire that particular month, that's the monthly test. And finally, your full complete mock test of the entire course. So this is the stepwise process you would go through when you would find yourself entering one by one and getting this entire thing done. So let me go to this. The first step is notes. We have seen it. The second is the main lecture. Third is the revision doubts. And the fourth and last is most important thing is the practice, test, and finally the full exam. So this is what we are expected to do as a Glecta methodology week after week for entire course which you are enrolled in. Now coming to the other parts of it, group size is very important, and we at Glecta believe that more than 10 in a group doesn't make participation equally good. That's why we have only three type of group structure. One group structure is 10 people, another is 5, and another is 1-to-1. So three type of group structures are there. Then another thing is 100% scholarship that is very soon coming. We will inform you, and there are various discount options when you opt for enrolling the studies.
Hello, students. How are you all doing? You guys can talk to me while chatting. You can chat in the chat box so that I can read it and try and understand that you guys are understanding everything. Welcome to my lecture. We're going to start with a topic which is cell division. As you all know, there are cells in our body, and every organism is made up of certain amount of cells. Whether it be a single cell organism known as unicellular organisms, or having a lot of cells like in multiple cellular organisms. So there can be two types of organisms. Both of them need to division of cell, because they need to maintain the amount of cells along with living their life, growth, and maintaining the cells in the body. So we're going to talk about how this cell division actually happens. Talking about the learning objectives of this chapter, it is very important for us to understand what is the role of my chromosomes in the cells. Chromosomes are the genetic information that is present in the cells. So we're going to talk about how those chromosomes are actually taking part in the cell division. The second thing is to understand the importance of my cell cycle. And the last objective is going to be to understand how cells are going to divide while the while performing different kind of processes, one of which is mitosis. Talking about organisms, I said most of the organisms are made up of cells, whether it be a single cell organism or a multicellular organisms. Both the type of organisms have cells. Those cells will help them grow, and for that they need to make new cells. First thing is for growth. Second thing, if you think of it, if for say my cell was performing some function and it got ruptured, it got certain amount of wear and tear on itself. In that cases also my cell would have to divide itself, or it would have to make new cells so that it can take place of the cells that have been damaged. The third is, for example, you got a cut on your hand. In that case, your skin got opened up and your cell would have to. Okay, so the question says, Miss, what is an organism? Is it different from organ? Yes. Okay, so let me write it. There are levels of organization. Different level of organization tells me how complex an organism is going to be. So the simplest organism that we know has only cells present in it. So these cells are going to be present, and this is going to be only a single cell organism. Even if it does have amount of our cells more than one, then those cells are going to be individual cells and never interacting with each other. Then the complexity increase when cell goes from a single cell to a group of cells performing the same function, which is known as tissue. Sometimes two or three tissues work together and form a tissue system. So this is my third level of organization. Sometimes tissue systems work together to form a organ. And then organs work together, a lot of organs work together to form organ system. And when more than one organ systems are working together, that type of organization is actually known as organism. So your complexity of organism actually starts from cells, which is the simplest kind of organism, to an organism which has all the type of cells present. All those cells will form tissues. Those tissues will lead to formation of tissue system, then organs and organ system, at last when an organism. So if you look inside your body, you will see cells. For example, you know about RBCs. You have tissues. You know about muscles in your biceps. And you also know about abs. I think everybody knows about what abs are. So that are tissues. Then we're going to talk about tissue system. There are two or three types of tissues working together. That is known as a tissue system, which is usually there in organs. Then you have organ systems. In organs, you're going to have different kind of levels. For example, your stomach is an organ having more than one type of tissues. There are cells that are only going to secrete HCl in your stomach. Then the other who is going to secrete mucus, and there's another that is going to secrete pepsin. So these are different kind of acids and other enzymes that are released. Each one of them need to have a different kind of cell system to release. That is an organ working as the highest complexity of tissues. Then there is organ system, your entire body. Your heart is working to pump the blood. That blood is going to your lungs and getting oxygen. That same blood is also going to kidneys to get purified. And at last, there are the system that you have, and this entire system all together will make an organism. So this is the complexity of your organisms. So coming back to the topic, I hope your question is clear. Coming back to the topic, we were talking about how organisms need to have cells for growth. We need to make new cells so that we can grow. Then we need to repair our old cells, or we have to change the cells and replace them. Next is if in some cases your cells die. For example, you get a cut on your hand. Your cells are going to die from the place that the cut happened. Then you have to make new cells and replace the ones that have been dead. So you need to let go of the dead cells and get new cells. So these are three incidences in which you're going to have to make new cells. But the most important thing is that the genetic material cannot change. Now, for say your liver cells are damaging themselves. It might be because of XYZ reasons, but it's still damaging itself. I need to make new cells for liver, but in case I make a cell which is not having the same genetic material as my previous uh, liver cell, then what is going to happen? The cell would have to learn again what to do because it doesn't have any memory of the previous work. But if I make the cell with the same kind of genetic material as the previous cell, the new cell would automatically know what to do, which means it would automatically start performing the functions of liver. So this is one reason we need to have new cells. Now talking about the information that is in the cells. I hope you all know what a chromosome structure is. For those who do not know, you can look at the diagram and I can explain it here itself. This is the DNA. You see DNA as a structure which looks like this. This DNA is compactly packed into chromosomes so that that structure, chromosomal structure, can fit into nucleus. Why is it so? Because nucleus is very, very small and you need to fit a lot of information that is in your DNA into that nucleus. So you need to compact that structure. So the chromosomal structures come into place to compact my DNA structure. The chromosomes carry genes. Now, genes are nothing but a part of chromosome. For say, if I look at this diagram and I say this is gene number 1 and this is gene number 2. So there can be n number of genes. First can be here, the other one can be also here. So we can have n number of genes that will be present on the chromosome. These genes are going to have commands that my body is going to follow. For say, the first gene that I've marked here is A gene, and this A gene codes for your skin color. There's a protein which is known as melanin, which actually codes for your skin color. If you have a lot of melanin produced in your body, your skin color will be darker. If you do not have any amount of melanin produced in your body, your skin color will be lighter. And if you have sufficient amount of melanin, you're going to be wheatish. So it has nothing to do with the families, but the kind of genes that are present. So looking at the genes, for say this gene is present, this gene will be expressed in my body and my body will start performing functions like that. Which means if the gene of melanin is present in my body will start producing the protein which is melanin, and that will be changing the skin color of my body. So these are instructions, and for say that I've given you an example of what kind of instructions there are. Other kind of instructions that the proteins and the genes are going to give is how to make a new cell, which cell is to be replaced, how do you need to make a new tissue or an organ. We do not make an entire organ altogether in our body because we're very, very complex organisms. But at the same time, our organs like liver specifically has a regenerative power, which means if your liver is damaged and you give it some time, the liver is going to repair itself on its own. So all these commands are actually given by the genes that are present in chromosome. Next is that gene is a small packet of information that controls the characteristics of already told you how that does happen, or it is going to control a part of characteristic. For example, your body is made up of what kind of color your skin is, your eye color, your hair color, your height, your stature. All these things are going to be because of different kind of genes that are present. I've taken an example of chromosome number 17 here. In that, there is a serotonin transporter gene that is present, and this gene regulates your moods. So if you're happy, you're because of this gene. If you're sad, you're because of this gene, because this gene actually controls the mood in the body. This section of DNA is a unique molecule and it is going to make up your chromosome. So chromosome is going to have a small section that is only going to have genes, and those genes will be expressed in the body. Talking about most of your characteristics are the results of different kind of genes, like I just told you. Other than that, there are different amount of chromosomes. We have 23 pair of chromosomes. These are 23 pair of chromosomes. Or you can say we have 46 chromosomes. These 46 chromosomes can have n number of genes. For say, some can have hundreds of genes, some can have thousand, depending upon the length of the chromosome. So if you look at this, chromosome number 1 is a lot longer, so it can have a lot of genes. On the other hand, if you look at this is my 22nd number of chromosome. It is smaller, having less amount of genes. So the question says, why do people know the chromosomes of for having double? Okay, so double helix structure is because that is how your DNA is. If you look at the DNA structure under the electron microscope, you do have a structure like this, and this is made up of different kind of chemicals. If I want to specify here, because it is in your syllabus, so let me specify the amount of chemicals that are present. This is what you're going to look at if you look at the structure of DNA under an electron microscope. Although if you're not looking at it under the electron microscope and if you're looking at it under a test tube. So let's say this is the test tube. In the bottom of the test tube where the water is, you're going to see a white colored thread, which is very, very thin. I mean, if you want to pick that up, it will break. That small and that delicate DNA looks when you're looking at it in a test tube without any kind of microscope. But if you want to know the detailed structure of the microscope of your DNA, this is how it is going to look. These strands, the backbones, this, these, these are your sugars and phosphates that is present. These sugars in the form of DNA is going to be a deoxyribose sugar. In the form of RNA or in the RNA structures, these sugar are going to be only ribose sugar. So let me write it. One is ribose sugar. The other one is deoxyribose sugar. There's not much difference except the word deoxy. This deoxy word actually means the ribose sugar is the same except the oxygen have been removed. So there's no difference between DNA and RNA sugar except the absence of oxygen in the molecule of DNA. So this is your backbone. Other thing is the ladder-like structure that you see. So you can draw it like this. This is nothing but nitrogen bases. These nitrogen bases are of 4 type. You're going to learn about this in your lectures when you're going to talk about DNA structures in detail. So I hope this question is clear. Now you've understood the DNA structure. Coming back to the topic, welcome. So coming back to the topic, the first chromosome is a lot longer, which means it is going to have a lot of amount of genes. On the other hand, the 22nd number of chromosome is a lot smaller, which means my 22nd chromosome by default cannot carry a lot of genes in comparison to chromosome number 1, which means the 22nd chromosome is going to have a little lesser amount of genes. Now, like I said, you have 46 chromosomes. Those 46 are placed in a form of 23 pairs. This is how your 23 pair of chromosomes are going to look like. So this is chromosome number 1. This is chromosome number 23. We do not write chromosome number 23 as number 23. Instead, we write it as XY in the case of men and XX in the case of females. So if you look at this, this is a Y chromosome. Y chromosome is the smallest chromosome in the human body. Now, if you look at these, there are 23 pairs. Every chromosome number has 2 chromosomes in it. One of this chromosome, for say, this chromosome, is actually from the mother, and this chromosome is from the father, which means your egg and sperm, when are fertilizing, they only have 23 chromosomes. So before you get confused in your head, let me write it. We have 46 chromosomes. These 46 chromosomes are placed as 23 pair. In 23 pair, this 23 chromosomes come from the mother's body, and these 23 are going to come from the father's family, father's side of the cell, which means sperm has 23 chromosome and egg also have 23 chromosome. So say this is your egg and this is your sperm, 23 chromosome from here, 23 chromosome from here, coming together forming a zygote having 46 chromosomes in the form of 23 pair. So this is how it goes. So in each chromosome, they're going to be inheriting some features from the father and some from the mother, which is exactly why you might look similar to your parents but are not exact copy of them, because you're having variations. You're having two families mixed together. Your mother belongs from a different family, she has different kind of genes present. Your father belongs from a different family, he also have different kind of genes present. You are the mixture of two types of genes, which is why you're similar and not exact clone copies of your parents. So the sex cells, which are your gametes, which is your sperm cell and egg cell, only have one chromosome from each pair, which is in total, they're only going to have 23 chromosome in total. Now coming to your cell cycle. Cell cycle, before starting cell cycle, let's relate it to your own life. Your life has stages in your life. You were once an infant, then you had your childhood, then you came into adolescence or puberty, or also known as teenage, then into adulthood, and then we're going to have a old age. So that happens in our life. Similar things actually happen with cell, but they're a little different because there are smaller organisms, they're very, very small, and these cells are going to have different kind of functions. Okay, so the next question says, so is it only 23 chromosomes in each body? No. Going back to the slide, each cell of your body, each cell, if you have n number of RBCs, okay, so RBCs do not have nucleus, which means they do not have chromosomes because chromosomes are present in nucleus. So one thing that you learned. The other thing is, for example, let me take WBCs. So you have n number of WBCs. Those n number of WBCs are going to have n number of nucleuses in them. Each nucleus is going to have 23 pair of chromosomes. Of those chromosomes, if you're talking about your body, take an example of your body, because we understand things best when we're trying to relate them to ourselves. So let's say your body has a cell. I take a cell out of your body. This body cell is going to show me 23 pair of chromosomes, like in this chart. This chart is known as karyotype. It shows me how much chromosomes, or which type of chromosomes I have in my body. So I took a cell out of yours and I made the karyotype of your chromosomes. This is how the chromosome karyotype came. How do you know that these are okay? First, you check how many chromosomes are there. If there are exactly 46, which means there's a normal body, first thing. Second thing to know is that one, if you're talking about chromosome number one of that chromosome, it came from your mother, the other one came from the father. Your normal body cell, every body cell, except, let me write it before you forget, except your sperm cell and your egg cell. These are the only cells which have 23 chromosomes. Except these, every single body cell, every single, you count a hair cell or you count a toenail, every single cell from your head to toe has 23 pair of chromosomes, or 46 chromosomes. So there are 46 chromosomes in the body cell, and there be 23 in each from 23 are from mother. Yes. So yes, you have 46 chromosomes, with out of which 23 are coming from your mother and 23 are from the father. Together they're making 46, which is a normal number of chromosomes in the body. So except, like I've written here, except sperm and egg, every single cell from your head to toe is going to have 46 number of chromosomes in your cell, which are placed like 23 pairs as shown in this diagram. I hope this is all clear now. Do you guys have, if you guys have any question, you can still write it and I'll answer it, because it's a very, very important topic. Okay, welcome. So moving on, like I said, you have different stages in your life. You went from an infant to an old age. So similar thing happens in your cell. If you look at the diagram, it shows how there is cell division and different stages in your cell division. These exact stages all together are actually known as a cell cycle. This is how my cell is going to grow, then it is going to divide, and then it is going to live that life. So this is about how my cell is growing. If you talk about your life, you're going to tell you everything from your infant to your old age. Cell cycle is the life cycle, the entire life of your cell. Is this one the hardest topic? No, it's about how much you relate to the topic, I think. No, it's not the hardest topic. If you try and understand a topic like relating to it, I don't think any topic is going to be difficult. There are a lot difficult topics in this syllabus. But at the same time, I think, like I said, if you connect things to yourself, you will understand them better. So rather than taking it as a syllabus that you have to cram up and, mug it up in your head and then vomit it on your paper, I don't think you're going to get anywhere. Rather than doing that, I would prefer that you relate everything to your body, which is exactly why every time that I teach, I say my cells, because they're my body. So try and relate to the cells. The next question says the cell cycle is interphase, mitosis, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and then cytokinesis. That's really nice. I'm really glad you know that. Yes, it is like that. Because we're talking about a demo, I'm going to give you a little basics of it. I'm not going into the details because right now it's not important for the chapter. This chapter is more about the topic that is only basics of what a cell cycle is, and then we're going to dive into mitosis. So talking about your cell cycle, the body cell divides in the series of stages which are known as cell cycle, the entire life of a cell. The cell division in a cell cycle involves a process which is known as mitosis, and it produces two identical cells. Imagine it, this is a new cell. This cell grows because it's normal for any cell to grow. Once it has grown, it will come into a stage of cycle where it is going to divide into two cells. Then again, talking about this cell, which is newly divided, it is going to grow and then divide. Then again, grow, divide. So this is a continuous process in your body, and this is known as mitosis, in which you're going to produce two identical daughter cells. Now, very important thing, when we talk about a cell, we always say a daughter cell or a mother cell. We do not talk about father cell and son cell. So if I say, I'm saying this cell divided into two cells. So the cell that is divided is known as the mother cell, and the two cells that have been formed are known as daughter cells. So do not confuse it. I'm always going to use these words only, mother cell and daughter cell, because that is how you pronounce them in your biology. Coming to, as the result, your normal body cells have the same chromosome number and the same genetic information. How do you have it? I just said that the cell is going to grow and divide. So how does these two cells have the same amount of genetic material? Because how much chromosomes we are supposed to have? We're only supposed to have 46 chromosomes. So this had 46, it grew, and then it divided. So how is these two going to have 46 and 46? Because my DNA is going to multiply itself or it is going to replicate itself. I would prefer that you use technical words or biological terms rather than using words like divided. Because if you say multiplied and divide, it goes into your mathematics subject. So I will rather prefer that you use words like replicated. Coming to your cell division, cell division by mitosis is going to produce an additional cell that will be needed to grow and develop into a multicellular organism and for the replacement of all the damages in the cell. Now, like I said, for example, you had a cut on your hand. Every time that you get a cut, whether it be a scratch, your cells from that part are damaged and that need to be replaced by new cells. So what your body going to do? Your body is going to perform mitosis around that wound and your cells are going to cover that place up, which is exactly why you have a fibril-like structure on your hand every time that you get hurt, because those are new cells forming. And every time that you try to remove that fibrillin-like structure, you get hurt and there's blood again, because those cells are trying to heal up your structure and you're trying to remove it. So do not remove it the next time you have it. Talking about organisms, like I said, there are two types of organisms. One is having unicellular structure, only one cell is present, and the others are multicellular. I'm so sorry, the question came up as, are there different types of cell of division? Different type of cell division? Yes, for example, can you have cell division without mitosis? Yes. I said there are two exceptions. Exceptions of your sperm cell, and the other exception is your egg cell. I said these are the only two cells in your body that are going to have 23 chromosome instead of 46. The kind of division that is shown for the formation of your sperm and egg is a little different. This kind of division is known as meiosis. Other than this part, other than formation of your egg cell and your sperm cell, every type of division that is there in your body is mitosis, which is the more important part, because that is exactly why we're discussing mitosis first. What is the difference between mitosis and meiosis? Like I just said, mitosis is when the cell is growing and it divides into two Each of them are going to have 46 chromosomes in each cell. In meiosis, what happens is the cell is only going to have 23 chromosomes instead of 46, which means half the number of chromosomes. So the next question says, thank you, welcome. So I was talking about that there are unicellular organisms. So unicellular organisms only have a single cell. They're not supposed to perform mitosis for growth, because if they grow, they're going to become two organisms by default. For example, this is an organism, and this organism wants to divide itself. While this organism divides, this is going to form two organisms and not cells, because this is only one cell organism. So this is what happens in asexual reproduction. A unicellular organism divides itself and forms another organism, and formation of your young ones is known as reproduction. So mitosis in lower organisms is also a form of reproduction. So cell of the offspring are produced by mitosis from the cells of their parent. Look at this. This was the cutest that I've found, so I'm sorry. So this is a unicellular organism. It is known as paramecium, and it's going to divide. It stretches itself and it divides. So it is going to form a new cell. With cell and formation of a new organism, because it's a unicellular organism, is known as reproduction, which is why we say that this type of reproduction is asexual reproduction. This is why they contain the exact same gene as their parent, and they have little or no genetic variation. Which means if I say this cell for say is paramecium, is a amoeba, is a bacteria. It's a unicellular organism only having single cell living freely in the world. Now this cell suddenly decides that it wants to divide. So it's going to grow and form two cells. Each of these cells will be a new organism, right? But these organisms by default are going to have the exact same amount of DNA. And an exact same amount of DNA means the exact copy of the DNA, which is why these organisms do not have different faces, and we do, because we're formed by sexual reproduction, combination of genes, and these are formed by the same cell. Your cell cycle takes less than 24 hours in some organisms. For say, if it's a small organism or it's a newborn baby, it will take a lesser time for the cell cycle to complete. When I talk about cell cycle, I mean a cell growing itself and then dividing, the entire process. In some organism, it is only going to take 24 hours. In some, it may take several years. For example, in old age, your cells divide, but they divide at a very, very slow rate, which is why your skin starts showing wrinkles and your inner body is going to degrade, which is because of oxidation, right? So it is depending upon the cell involved, what kind of cell is dividing, first thing, and the second is the stage of life that organism is on. If you're younger, cell division is faster. If you're older, cell division is slower. The next thing is that cell cycle is short when a baby is developed, which is exactly why one single cell, which is your zygote, is able to develop itself into an organism which is known as a baby or a fetus within only 9 months. In 9 months, the single cell develops into a baby that comes out in the world. So the next question says, as you grow taller, is cell division taking place everywhere or in a certain part of the body? Well, if you talk about it, it is everywhere in humans. In plants, it's a little different. In humans, for say, if you're growing taller, your cells, specifically the area that is connected to the bones, is developing because your bones are growing taller. So every time the bone is trying to grow taller, the cells around that bone are also going to divide. So it may be at all points of body, but it's not like the entire body cells are dividing at the same time. If that happens, that is known as cancer. That is something that we're going to talk about in further classes. So this is a zygote that is developing itself into a baby, as huge as a baby is. If you compare a single cell, which cannot be seen with naked eye, to a baby, that baby is huge as comparison to that cell. And that happens in only just 9 months. So your cell cycle is a way shorter when you're a baby or your infant, because it has to develop into an entire organism. And it is fairly rapid in your childhood too. But as soon as your puberty is over, your cell cycle becomes a little longer, which is pretty much why we say that you grow in height only till you're 18 years of age, and maximum it can extend to 21. After that, your height doesn't really grow. Why? Because your cell cycle has extended the time that it wants to divide the cell for. And the body is adult, which is why we do not have growth in heights. Now talking about, however, in adults, which is humans which are above 18, welcome. So in adults, there are regions which are having continuous cell division. For example, and these cells are not only dividing to increase something, they're also dividing for repairment of certain amount of parts in the body. For example, your hair follicle. Every time that you pluck a hair, that hair comes back. For females, I can say every time that you wax your hair comes back. Your hair are coming back because the cells in your hair are actually stimulating the growth again and again. Other than that, there is skin. Every time that you have a cut on your skin heals itself. That is because of the continuous cell division that is still there in the cells. The next is the blood. If you lose blood, for example, you had a cut and you lose certain amount of blood, your body can fill up for that blood. It can again form that blood and your amount of blood in the body can retain to the normal level. And last is the lining of your digestive system. The inner lining of your digestive system has mucus in it so that your food can properly go down without any issue. That mucus is changed rapidly so that the new cells of mucus can release a lot of mucus, and there is never shortage of mucus while you're eating, which is why you do not have a problem swallowing things because you have mucus in your throat. Now talking about the main topic, which is your cell cycle. The cell cycle is going to have 3 phases if you're talking about your simpler form, 4 if you're talking about the details form. So let's talk about from here. This is from where your cell division starts. There is a G1 phase, then there's an S phase, and there's a G2 phase. These 3 together are known as the growth phases or the interphase. Every time somebody says G in relation to a cell cycle, I want you always to connect it with a word which is growth. Every time I say that it is in a G phase, the cell is only growing. Nothing else, nothing more, just growth. So if you want to remember it, you remember it as G is for growth. The other phase is S. This is for synthesis. Synthesis of what? DNA. So my DNA is going to replicate itself in the S phase. And the last phase is the M phase, which we're going to talk about, which is your mitosis phase. This is how your cell divides. It grows, it divides. But before growing and dividing, there's our other parts, which is this is a normal cell growing, then developing and replicating the DNA. Then that it has enough DNA, it is going to divide. So this is what is happening in your body. Now talking about the each stage, I am going to draw diagrams. I would want, if you have a copy a pen, which I prefer you do, so you start drawing them with me so that you can remember the stages of your cell cycle. So what is going to happen in the first phase? This is the longest phase of your cell cycle. In this, your cell is just going to grow. So this is my normal cell. It is a newly formed cell. So treat it as an infant. So this cell is going to develop into a little bigger cell. Now this cell, I said, will have 46 chromosomes. There are 46 chromosomes because it's a normal cell of the body. So this cell is going to again grow a little, but because it has to divide, ultimate goal of the cell is for division. It is also going to replicate its DNA while it is dividing. So the cell is growing again, but it is dividing it is replicating its DNA. If I replicate 46, it is going to be 46 pair, or it is going to be 98 chromosomes. I hope you've all done the maths. 46 replicating itself, which means 46 chromosomes here. The next replicated batch will also make 46. Together, they are going to be 98 chromosomes. Then again, now a cell does not only have chromosomes. Chromosomes are present just in the DNA. There are other materials that are present in the cytoplasm of the cell too. Now, because I need to divide the cell and the ultimate goal is to divide the cell, I am going to have to also divide the organelles that are present outside my nucleus, which is your mitochondria, ribosomes, chloroplast in the cells that are plant cells. Other than that, there's Golgi apparatus, lysosomes. All these organelles that are present outside the nucleus are going to divide themselves, which means they're going to replicate themselves again. So they're going to be an increase in the number of subcellular structures. So this is where my first cell stage is going to end, where there is amount of DNA which is doubled, and there is amount of subcellular organelles, which is your uh, mitochondria and your ribosomes, your Golgi apparatus, which are also double in number. So my cell is a lot heavier right now. This is where the first stage ends, and then there's going to come the second stage in which my cell is going to divide now. So let me draw the diagram that I had, a heavy cell with 98 chromosomes because 46 replicated itself, and a lot of organelles in the cytoplasm. Now what is going to happen? The chromosomes are going to divide, because this is not a normal cell. These type of cells are not going to survive because they have so much DNA in themselves that they won't be able to perform the actual function. So they would have to divide the amount of chromosomes that are present. So this cell is slowly going to divide itself. But division doesn't happen in one way. The division is going to take place like this. So this is the cytoplasm, extended cytoplasm. And this extended cytoplasm will now have two nucleuses. This nucleus will now have 46 chromosomes. So will this extended nucleus. So these are going to have same amount of chromosomes. Ma'am, this is okay. Hold on. 46 plus 46 is 92. Oh, okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, it says 92. So I'm going to have 46 in the upper nucleus and 46 in the lower nucleus. So this is going to be here. And the nucleus is going to have some same amount of chromosome, which is normal amount of chromosome, that is 46. But till here, the cytoplasm is still the same. The cytoplasm has not divided itself in the second stage. That is something that is going to happen in the next stage, which is your stage number 3. In this stage, what is going to happen? Let me draw the last stage. It was like this. DNA having 46 chromosomes, this DNA also having 46 chromosomes, and cytoplasm having a lot of organelles to balance out for 2 cells. Now this cell is going to divide its cytoplasm, forming a normal cell, having normal amount of organelles and normal amount, which is your 46 chromosomes in the nucleus. So this is what has happened. This is your mitosis. Looking at these two, the normal cell dividing its chromosome, which is replication of DNA, in which the amount of DNA has doubled. Once this has happened, chromosomes come here. This in the middle is known as a metaplate. And what is going to happen? My chromosomes are going to hang on the metaplate. Once this hanging happens, this phase by default is known as metaphase. Metaphase, the word came because of the presence of metaplate on which your chromosomes are hanging. After this, what happens is, if you see these thread-like structures, these thread-like structures, for say this is a chromosome, this is another chromosome, these are hanging from the upper parts. My thread-like structures are going to pull it. As soon as it pull it, the amount of chromosomes are going to again half. Right? So 2 chromosomes move up, 2 chromosomes move down, having equal amount of chromosome. So this is what is happening. If you look at the other GIF, it shows how the nucleus divides first and the outer cytoplasm divides later. Yes, very good. These fibers are actually known as spindle fibers. These spindle fibers come from your centriole region, and these central region are going to throw fiber-like structures which are nothing but threads, and these threads are going to hang your chromosomes. Then they are pulled from your centriole region, and this phase is known as anaphase, where the pulling happens, and this is your karyokinesis, in which your nucleus divides completely. So this is your cell cycle. Now coming to your syllabus has an estimation of how much is it the name of the poles of the cell. Spindle fibers, no. Okay, so let's go back to the slide. No, let me draw it. This is your cell. There is a small structure here. These structures are known as centrioles. These centrioles are going to throw these going to throw fibers which are like this, and on these your chromosomes are going to hang themselves. This is again the thread from the lower centriole, like this. There are centrioles on the corners, spindle fibers coming. Fibers are threads. So you can remember that fibers are nothing but thread-like structures. These thread-like structures are going to come down, hang my chromosome on the metaplate. Once that happens, your centriole is going to pull. As soon as my centriole pull, so will your spindle fibers will be pulled apart. Once spindle fibers are pulled apart, chromosomes will break. So chromosomes will break into two parts. Two will go on the upper part, two will go on the lower part. Now, if you think about it, if it is 92, it is going to divide into 46 upper part, 46 lower part, which is a normal cell. Welcome. Talking about the length of the cell is going to be, you need to note 3 points. Let's come to the actual part, which is your, if you look at the slide, and this is how your slide is going to look. So you'd see 1 complete cell, 2 complete cell, 3, 4, and 5 complete cells. You see 5 complete cells. If for say your question asks how many cells are in your division phase, which is your mitosis phase. So you see this, your spindle fibers, and you see these are your spindle fibers, right? So what is going to happen? You're going to have to find 3 things. First is how many are in the mitosis phase. Second is the time that you have to know. First, you have to know the entire total time. For say the total time of this cell cycle, this cell cycle takes approximately, let's say, 10 hours. Okay, so this cell cycle, total cell cycle, which means growth and division, both are taking 10 hours. Now you need to find out how much time these two are going to take for mitosis. How do you find that? First thing is that you need to know the amount of cells that are dividing. In this, 2 cells are in the mitosis phase, which means 2. And then you have total number of cells. You need to count the total number of cells. For total number of cells, make sure you're not counting cells like these. This is a half cell inside the slide, half outside the slide. You do not know what is happening on the outer region, so you do not count those cells. Similar, you're not going to count this or this or this. So total number of cells that you see total are 5. Then there are 10 hours. So this is the formula. Number of cells in the stage divided by total number of cells observed into the timings. So you do this. Now, because this is 10 hours and your SI unit is minutes, you're going to multiply it with 60. So you calculate this. So it is going to be 240. Is it always 10 hours? No, it's not always 10 hours. Never. For say normal human body cell only has 24 hours, and they are normal cells divide by the time 24 hours is complete. But as you grow old in your age, your cell cycle will have a longer time, which means it might take a day and a half. Some might take 2. So it is going to increase with the time, but I'm just taking an example. So I hope this is clear. This completes my cell cycle. Now talking about, did you guys understand the calculations? Welcome. Now talking about cells, I hope you all guys are very concerned about your faces, so that you guys exactly know how your skin cells fall off every day because they're dead skin cells. This is how your dead skin cells are on your face, which is pretty much why dermatologists say that you should wash your face before sleeping, because by the time that your day ends, this is how your skin looks like. You need to remove that dead skin so that new skin can come up. So your new skin is going to be lighter in color because there's going to be lesser melanin and lesser dust and pollutant particles from the outside. First thing that, so this is where your cell cycle is very active at your skin structures. When I say skin, I actually mean your palm regions. Uh, I hope you guys have noticed it. If you haven't, notice it the next time your atmosphere changes. When your seasons change, the skin of your palm actually changes itself. That is because the atmosphere is changing and the skin is getting dead because of the changes in the environment, amount of pollutants in the environment and dust particles. All these factors are going to affect the cell condition. If they are dead, you would have to, sometimes there are cuts on your hand because of no reason. That is because the cells are dying. Once those cells die, new cells come up. Similarly, I think there are a lot of kids that would know the snake actually removes the entire the dead skin is removed in one go in snakes, and they then have a new skin. So this procedure of removing dead skins and getting new cells is continuous in your body. Then there is that there are about, which this is very important, there are 300 million cells that are going to die every minute. So the cell division of mitosis is very, very important, because if 300 million are dying every second, you would have to at least make 300 million to replace them, first thing. Second, in a child, the mitosis is very, very fast, which means the amount of cells that are produced and the amount of cells that are dying is low, which is why when you're a kid, your skin is very, very glowing and your skin is very healthy, because the amount of cells that are produced are high and the amount of cells that are dying is very, very low. First thing. Second thing, if you look at it, when you grow in age, your cell cycle extends its time, which means the amount of cells that will be produced and the amount of cells that are dying is different, which means lesser cells produced, more cells dying, because death of the cells is going to be approximately same. 300 cells are supposed to die every minute, but the amount of cells that will be produced will be low, which is exactly why you see the signs of aging. So this completes my theory part. I hope you now all understand how a cell is dividing in the body. If you have, I would want you to answer the questions. So be very, very active in the chat section. So the first question is that this is a slide that is showing your cell division in an onion cell. It is the roots of onions. And the question is, in the above image, you have to label actively dividing cells by the alphabet X. Now, because you guys are not, you can't really touch the screen. So this is the answer that I am going to give you, which is obvious that this shows spindle fibers. So does this. So these are two which are obviously into your mitosis phase. So you're going to label it with X. Even if in your exam you label 1 with X, it would be more than enough. But I would always, always tell you that how many ever you see in the spindle fiber stage, mark them as X. The next question says, name the type of cell division that occurs in the meristem of the plant for growth. What is the type of division that actually encourages your growth? Be active in the chat section and tell me. Should I start calling out names so that you guys know that I'm here? Meiosis. Sid, meiosis is for the number of cells should decrease. I am talking about growth. If you're increasing your height, your own height, what is the kind of division that you would require? Exactly, Rita, that's very nice. So it is going to be mitosis. First important thing, always spell mitosis right. If the spelling is wrong, your answers will go into drain. So remember spellings of your biological words. Second is, before the cell division, what must happen to its genetic material? What should genetic material do? Genetic material is your DNA or the chromosomal structure. So what does that have to do? It must replicate. Very nice. Again, like I said, generic language is not very much encouraged in your, what do you call it? In your biology sessions. Biology is all about having a name, having a term very, very specified to the step. Okay, Tejas said multiply. Tejas said multiply. Again, I would say do not use generic words. Use words like replicated, doubled, copied, again doubled, and or you can say cloned. Do not use words like multiplied or reproduced, because these are very, very generic and they're not specifying it that they're actually replicated. This process of DNA making amount of DNA is actually known as replication. So stick to the word replication. Will you lose marks if you use generic words? You might. If it's a 1 mark question, you might get half because of using a generic language. So do not try to use generic languages in your biology exam, because that's very important, so that the teacher exactly knows that you've studied enough to know the actual term, biological term for that process. This is another question. There are certain kids that have done the experiment. Again, the slide, uh, they're going to be slides for your, they have done an investigation on cell cycle on the root tip of onion. These are the number of stages. Now, because here there are 4 stages and I've taught you 3. So you need to remember that this is your growth phase. This is your synthesis phase, where your DNA is replicating itself. This is your karyokinesis, where your nucleus is dividing, and this is your cytokinesis, where your cytoplasm is dividing. The question actually says different stages of cell cycle take different amount of time. We just found out that. So what is the stage which is the slowest? Which stage is the slowest? You can see it in here. How many cells are in growth phase? Very nice. Yes. Your growth phase or the stage 1 is going to have a lot of cells. In this slide, there are 15 cells that are actually seen in your growth phase, which is the slowest phase. Why? Because cell has to grow, it has to multiply all the organelles, so that takes a lot of time. No, your cytokinesis does not take a lot of time, because cytokinesis is nothing but, it's like, this is my cell before cytokinesis, because the nucleus has divided itself. So this is nucleus. It has to do nothing but cut the cells from here. That's it. So cytokinesis does not take a lot of time. Growth, on the other hand, does. Because growth means the cell has to increase in size first. Second, all the organelles that are in the cell has to replicate themselves so that there can be equal amount of organelles in the cells that are going to be formed. I hope this is all clear. If you guys have any question, please comment in the chat box. From my side, this is the last question. It says it takes 18 hours to complete one cell cycle. And in that cell cycle, you have to find out what is the stage 3rd and what is the amount of time that stage 3rd is going to take. So for you, because you do not have, I do not have a lot of time, I can't let you guys actually count all this. So I'm going to tell you, you're going to count 3 things again. Cells in that stage, which is in the stage number 3. If you're smart enough, you can go back and see in this. There are 6 cells in the stage number 3. So use your brain very, very smartly so that you exactly know how to save time. Cells in that stage and total number of cells, that was also written in the same table. So these are 6 and these are 68. Then the total amount of time taken by the cell is 18 hours. So by formula, it says 6 divided by 68 into 18, because it is hours, you're going to multiply it with 60 to give out minutes. This approximately comes as 95.29, which is approximately equal to 95.3. So you can also write it as 95 minutes. If you write 95 minutes, how do we get 6 and 68? Okay. This is the slide. The formula says, if you're asking the time for stage number 3, for say I asked you that this is the data, because this is a question, this is the same question. In your question, you're going to get the question in the same page, because now I have to change the slides. I could not show you the table, but you can take the data from the table. Now I ask you the question that the cell cycle has taken place, and I have a slide of that. Now you have to tell me how many cells took how much time to complete stage number 3. Oh, sorry, I thought it was a separate question. No, it's the same question. So you can take data from here, because we're talking about stage number 3. The stage number 3 has 6 cells in it, and total number of cells are 68. You're going to divide 6 by 68 into 18 hours, because the question says it takes total of 18 hours. And then you can multiply it with 60 to convert it into minutes. It is going to come out at 95 minutes. So you can approximate at 95 minutes, you're going to get time. Now, this question does not have a lot of multiplication, so do not take a lot of time while solving these questions. Any other question? Because I am completed. I hope it is all clear. If it is, I am going to transfer the slides to your physics teacher so that he can continue your lecture. So I hope it is all clear. Welcome. Bye-bye. Take care.
Welcome, students. So now we will continue with physics. Welcome you all. So you have got a very good session, biology. Now let us begin with physics session. So in this physics session, we are going to talk about motion and forces. The question here is how does a body come in motion if it is at rest? So this is the question. How can we stop a body which is in motion? So you can relate with this motion and forces, right? Motion and forces. In this chapter, we are going to learn Newton's first law and Newton's second law. So after this session, you will understand how to describe Newton's first law and use it in the following situations. First is where the resultant force on a body is zero. Another, where the force is not zero. Next, we are going to learn is describing Newton's second law and use it as the following equation. Force, which is measured in Newton and which is equal to mass, which is measured in kilogram, multiplied by acceleration, which is measured in meter per second square, right? So let us move further. Before I proceed, I want you to look at the key terms. First key term is resultant force. Another is balanced force. Next one, unbalanced force, and then acceleration. So let us first of all look at this resultant force. That single force which has same effect as the combination of multiple forces on an object is called resultant force. Now, when two forces act in the opposite direction, resultant force can be calculated as the difference of two forces. And the direction of the resultant force is in the direction of larger force. Now, I want you to understand this thing. Before I move further, I want you to understand, to stop a body in motion, we need to apply force. We'll explore it in further slides. And in bringing a body in motion, again, you need to apply force. Yes, of course. Now, there are situations where multiple forces acting on a body. Suppose I have a body, and one force is acting from this side, another force is acting from this side. So what will happen? There must be some resultant force. We'll talk about that. Resultant force. What is it? Suppose I have one force acting from this side, another force acting from this side with this magnitude F1 and F2 respectively. What will happen? Yes. The net force, resultant force, will be the difference of the two forces. Difference of the two forces. And the body is supposed to move in the direction of larger force. Let us look at this. You see here, F1 force is acting from this side, and F2 force is acting from right hand side. So what will happen? See, this thing will happen. So resultant force equals F1 minus F2, and the calculation is very easy. You can see here F1 minus F2, that is 35 minus 25, which is equal to 10 Newton, right? You all are aware that force is measured in Newton. All right. Never miss the units, right? Okay. Now come to this balanced force. We'll take the same situation. When a body has got two forces on it, two forces acting on it, but two forces are equal in magnitude, right? Equal in magnitude, and they are acting in the opposite direction. See here, what is happening? 25 Newton from left hand side and 25 Newton force acting from right side. So what is going to happen? Let us calculate. So resultant force is going to be 25 minus 25, which is equal to 0, right? So resultant force is 0 And that condition where multiple forces acting and you have got resultant force 0 will say that balanced force, right? Okay. Now let us talk about unbalanced force. What is happening? When the force, I have a question, balanced force equals when the force opposite directions on an object are the same size so that there is 0 resultant force. Yes, you're right. You're right. You saw this equal forces acting in the opposite directions, right? Same size, but direction is opposite. You're getting the resultant force 0. Very good. Now, unbalanced force. What is happening here? When two forces act in the opposite direction, now size of the force are unequal, right? Since the size of the force is unequal, resultant force is not going to be 0. Okay, very good. So the direction of the resultant force is in the direction of larger force. I want you to have some examples to understand this unbalanced force. Let us have a look. When a jet plane is taking off, the thrust force of its engine is greater than the force of air resistance or drag on it, right? Let us have a look. It is taking off. It can take off only when the direction of, this engine is having this force in this direction and drag is in the opposite direction, right? So in this scenario, what is happening? Unbalanced force, unequal forces acting in the opposite direction, right? So I have the question again. Unbalanced force equals when the force in opposite directions on an object do not cancel out. Yes, they do not have 0 resultant. They have two forces, two unequal forces are acting. The size of the force are unequal, right? They're acting in the same in the opposite direction, and the size of forces are unequal, right? Okay. Another example, when a car driver applies the brake, the braking force is greater than the force from engine, right? As a result, car slows down. You can have this relation, right? You must have experienced this, right? So again, if we can calculate the unbalanced force, what is that? Look at here. From left-hand side, 45 Newton force is acting, and from right-hand side, 35 Newton force is acting. The resultant force is coming out to be 10 Newton. 45 minus 35, that is equal to 10 Newton, right? For the balanced force, since the forces are equal, it will be 0, but will the object stationary? We will explore it. You will definitely get to know about this in further slides, right? This is the basic understanding, basic learning in this particular session we are in, okay? So now let us talk about, here you see what is happening. What is happening? Due to this unbalanced force, body comes in motion, and the direction of motion of the body is in the direction of larger force. You can see here, okay, the direction of larger force. Yes, you were saying move at constant speed. Yes, we'll understand that in further slides. Okay, now let us talk about acceleration. What is acceleration? Two things are important: direction and size of the velocity or magnitude, right? Speed is changing or the direction. It is change in speed of the body in a given direction, in a given time interval, and it is change in the direction of motion, with constant speed. Here, I want you to focus. What is happening? There is no change in direction. Now there is change in direction, right? Let us have a look again. See what is happening. It was moving in the same direction with different velocity, different speed. Now what is happening? Speed is same, but direction is changing. Got it? Very good. Vector quantity. Yes, you're right. This is an example of vector quantity. That is also there in the question in this, from this chapter. We'll have some of those questions later, right? Now, let us talk about Newton's first law, right? What is it? It is very simple. If the resultant force acting on a body is zero, what is going to happen? It will remain at rest or continue to move at the same speed in the same direction. Two things are important, mind it. If resultant force is zero, it will continue to be at rest or will move with the same speed in the same direction. So now the question which I had asked you in the beginning, to start a body in motion, suppose a body is at rest, there must be some non-zero resultant force acting on it to bring it in motion. Is that so? Yes. Right? So this was the thing when resultant force is zero. Yes, is zero. Now let us talk about when resultant force is not zero. What will happen? Of course, it will accelerate. You know what acceleration is. Okay, so there would be acceleration in the direction of resultant force. That you have understood, right? Okay, now let us discuss the different situations. Right now, I have taken this situation when box has no force acting on it. No force acts on the box, and initially it is at rest. So what will happen? Box continues to be stationary on the floor. Right? Okay. Now, another situation where the resultant force is zero and the box is initially at rest. Mind it, forces are acting. In the previous case, no force was acting, right? No force. And now what is happening? We have resultant force zero. Forces are acting, but resultant is zero. In that situation, what will happen? Body again will continue to be stationary because it was initially at rest. It continues to be at rest, right? 25 Newton from left side, 25 Newton from right side. What will happen? Resultant force is zero. We have calculated that. Okay. Now, box continues to be stationary on the floor. Fine. And do you see any acceleration in it? No, there is no acceleration in this. When resultant force is zero, no acceleration. Fine. Now, another situation where resultant force is zero, but box was in motion. Box was in motion. What will happen? Wow, that is also interesting. See, box will continue to move with the same speed, right? Constant speed in the same direction. Because any of the two, if you are changing speed or direction of motion, what will happen? Acceleration will take place. And acceleration cannot happen when resultant force is zero, right? So box has zero acceleration. Very good. Now let us move further. Let us talk about the situation when resultant force is not zero and box was moving with some velocity, with some speed, right? So let us have a look from left side, 35 Newton, and from right side, yes, very good, very good, very good. You got it right. So from left side, it is 35 Newton. From right side, it is 25 Newton. What will happen? Yes, you see that body is in motion and it is in accelerated motion, right? Accelerated motion. Body will start moving with greater speed in the direction of larger force, right? I will talk about that when we will discuss the questions, right? We'll talk about that. Right now, just go with the flow. Try to understand the different situations, what can happen, right? Very good. So you see here, there is motion in the direction of larger force with greater speed. Very good. Now, let us discuss another thing. Acceleration of the box is not zero. There is accelerated motion. We talked about that. Now, what are the different conditions? Look at this. What is happening? Can you figure it out? What is happening in this case? Airplane is at rest. So weight of the airplane is acting downward. You all know that. And the push of the ground is acting vertically upward, right? Now what is happening? Either see, push cannot be greater. Basic idea is very simple. I tell you, suppose this is a box. I'm saying one force acting upward, another force acting downward. If it is at rest, no acceleration, what I'm supposed to do, I'm supposed to talk about this pushing force and the weight, both must be equal, right? So push is greater is not the correct response, right? Got the point? I hope you got the point. Push, yes, you're right, Savita. The resultant force is 0. Very good, very good. Now there is another situation. Here you see the airplane is in motion, right? So engine force, right? Thrust is acting in the direction of motion, and drag, air resistance, drag is acting opposite to the direction of motion. Okay, so what is happening in this case? Of course, what we are saying is thrust is greater than drag, right? That is why we are saying that plane is in motion, right? Is that clear? Good. Now let us have another situation. Can we recap quickly? Yes, why not? Let us quickly recap the things. Key learning points. When no force acts on a body, what happens? It may be at rest, or it may be moving with constant speed in the same direction. Wow, interesting. When unbalanced force, you know that unbalanced force, when you're talking about unbalanced force, two unequal forces acting in the opposite direction, right? So when unbalanced force acts on a body, two situations may arise. Its speed changes and it continues to move in the same direction, right? Very good. And its direction changes and the speed is constant, right? So we can say that this is the situation when acceleration is non-zero, right? Acceleration is non-zero. Acceleration is non-zero. Right? So this is happening. Accelerated motion when unbalanced force is acting on a body. All right. Now let us move further and discuss few questions. Can you answer this question? Will the plane continue to move if the thrust and drag both are equal? Can I get the response from you guys? It continues to move with constant speed. One thing, either it will continue to move with constant speed or it will be at rest. Two situations. This was the key learning points we have understood. Yes, with same speed, you're right. Okay, so it might be at rest or it might be moving with the same speed, right? Okay, so what would be the answer? Both answers would be correct, right? Okay. Now, let us talk about another situation. Can you guys answer this question? In which of the following situations the resultant force is 0? Explain how you decided. A snooker ball resting on a snooker table, a car. Oh, very good. I got the response. Answer is A. Very good. Very good. Answer is A. A snooker ball resting on a snooker table has got resultant force 0. And why you are saying that? You are saying that because it is at rest. Acceleration is 0. Very good. Very good. Very good. So car accelerating, it is acceleration. Very good. Ball rolling and then slowing down, there is acceleration again. See, acceleration can happen in two ways. Either the speed is increasing or the speed is decreasing, right? When speed is decreasing, we say deceleration, right? So this is not the part of the discussion in we are doing in this session. Okay, now let us move further. Another question. If a boy tries to pull a crate and still it's not moving, mind it, the force which he applies, can you tell me, is greater than, less than, what? More or less? What is that? Then the friction acting between the surface and the crate. Can you tell me? Less than. Very good. Very good. I got the right response. Very good. Very correct. Correct response. All right. So let us move further. And now talk about Newton's second law. As I had told you, from Newton's second law, we will have an equation and we'll solve it. We'll use that equation to solve problems, right? So first thing is, what is Newton's second law? How it is stated? So it is stated in this manner. The acceleration produced in a body is directly proportional to the resultant force and inversely proportional to the mass of the body, right? I hope you understand what is the mass of the body. Suppose we are saying that this body is small and this body is big, right? There are two bodies we have. So as you know that this small body has got lesser matter contained in it, and in this more. So what will happen if you apply more force? If you apply equal force in both, this is M1 and this is M2. If you apply same force, F, right, what will happen? Can you tell me? Here we can say that M1 is less than M2. So what do you observe in this second law? Mass 2 will have lesser acceleration because mass is greater in this scenario, right? So we have this relation, right? Just have a look. So we are saying that A is inversely proportional to mass. A is inversely proportional to mass, right? Okay, so we have this situation. Acceleration directly proportional to force and acceleration inversely proportional to mass. So this is the equation. Acceleration directly proportional to mass, inversely proportional to directly proportional to force and inversely proportional to mass of the object, right? So that gives us this equation. If you combine the two, we will have this relation. F equals mass multiplied by acceleration, and you know that force is measured in Newton, mass is measured in kg, kilogram, and acceleration is measured in meter per second square, right? So we have this equation, F equals M into A. I want you to understand this thing. This F we are talking about is the resultant force. Mind it, there might be situation where multiple forces act on a body. What will happen? We need to calculate the resultant force, and that resultant force equals mass multiplied by acceleration, right? I hope you guys have understood this. This is important. Now we'll take up few questions. Okay, let's have a look. Here, two forces, if two forces act on a body and act on a box as shown in the diagram, the box has a mass 5 kg. Calculate the acceleration of the box. Can you calculate this? Very good. 10 Newton to the right. Very good. Very good. 10 Newton is the resultant force. But the question says acceleration of the box. How to calculate the acceleration of the box? See, we have to rearrange that equation which we have learned right now. That equation, very good, very good. That equation is F equals M into A. So this F is the resultant force, mind it. Very good, very good. You got it right. You got it right. Very good. Mass multiplied by A. So A comes as this. A equals what? F, that is resultant force, divided by mass. So this is your answer. Here you see this. This is moving in the direction of larger force. You have understood this. Acceleration. Here is the solution to this, right? Resultant force is 10 Newton. Many of you have got correct answer for this. Resultant force is 10 Newton, and acceleration A equals resultant force divided by mass, that is equal to 10 divided by 5, which is equal to 2 meter per second square. Very good. Very good. Awesome. Now let us talk about, let us have another question. Yeah. I hope you can calculate this, right? Resultant force, you need to calculate. Resultant force on an object of mass 60 kg when it has an acceleration of 4 meter per second square. 4 meter per second square. Okay, very good. 240 newtons. 240. Very good. So F equals M multiplied by A. That means 60, which is measured in kg, of course, 60 kg into 4 meter per second square. If you do this, we will have 240, and the unit is Newton. Mind it. Force is measured in Newton, right? So resultant force is coming as 240 Newton. Very good. Do you subtract for resultant force? No, we don't have to do that, right? Here we are saying that resultant force. I told you here, this F equals MA. See, I have told you here only that this is the resultant force, right? This force we are saying as resultant force. So you don't require to subtract it from some other. If you have a situation where multiple forces are acting, then you need to subtract. Is that clear? I hope you have understood this. Okay, no problem, no problem. Now you got it, right? So this is the equation. We have rearranged it, and this force represents a resultant force. So when you have a situation when multiple forces acting, you need to calculate the resultant force. But if you have, as I have told you, we have learned this thing, that resultant force is that single force that has the same effect of the combination of multiple forces. So that is why this equation F equals MA represents that resultant force. So simply you need to do the multiplication of mass and acceleration in this question, right? You simply multiply this mass and acceleration. Very good. Now let us have another question. Calculate again the resultant force needed by a sprinter who accelerates at 8 meter per second square. Sprinter, you can visualize that what force he or she needed. So that again goes with the help of second law, and that is equal to F equals M into A. This is very simple. Oh, I hope this mass of the sprinter is not given. So let's say mass is 80 kg. Mass is 80 kg. What is the answer? 80 into 8. What's the answer for this? 640 Newton, right? 640 Newton. That sprinter would need, very good, very good, very good. I got the correct response from you guys. Very good. Now, let us move further. I have this one more question, And there's a last question for this session. Okay, so what is the mass of an object? Mass of an object which accelerates at 4 meter per second square and a resultant force of 1000 Newton acts on it. Very good. Very good. Tejas. Very good. You got it right. So F equals M into A. If I rearrange this equation, I will get this. Sorry, this is mass we need to find out, right? So mass equals F divided by A. That goes with this 1000 divided by 4, which is equal to 250 Newton. Very good. 250 kg. Don't forget to mention the unit. Okay, 250 kg. Our answer is M equals 250 kg. 250 kg. Okay, this is not Newton, this is kg. Right? So this was it from my side in the physics session. If you have any doubt, any query, you are welcome to ask any doubt, any question. Before I hand over the screen to the Glecta team, formula for acceleration. Formula for acceleration. Again, you need to rearrange this equation. Okay, you need to rearrange this equation. F equals ma, right? So A comes as F upon m, right? This is the formula for acceleration. Yes, you need to here see what is happening. Here we talked about the cause of motion, right? There are situations where we need to discuss about the motion only. No cause is considered, right? So in that situation, we will have equations of motion, right? That is the part of another session. Right now, I hope what was there related to this F equals ma, that equation, you have this equation for acceleration to be A equals force and minded resultant force multiplied by the mass of the object, right? Is there any other doubt? Any other question? Okay, I hope you all have enjoyed this session. Thank you for watching us. And now I hand over the screen to the Glecta team. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, all the teachers. If you guys, it's for all the students and dear parents. If you have got any questions or any queries, please get back to us. You already have got the emails from us, and really appreciate your time. Many thanks for that. Thank you all. We can close down the session now. Thank you.